to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight. So here in Canada, because Robert and I were talking maybe about 15, 20 minutes prior to that, and I also had a conversation with George Gammon a few months prior, and we got into the conversations about real estate. Real estate here, as far as placing your money, as an investor to acquire and hold and put tenants in it even, unless you're running it as a full-time business, doesn't make a lot of sense. So if you've got some spare capital and you want to deploy it and say, all right, I'm going to buy a condo here and a house here or something like that. Like the last condo that I just sold a few months ago, it was in downtown Toronto. And to give you an idea of the ratios, about 850,000, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And when it was generating rental income, it was about $2,800 a month. So not a real good ratio, right? That's a lot different in many of the states in the U.S., right? Like real estate is a lot more attractive, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about Toronto, as you know, Rich, being there, I've spoken all over Canada, and I have lots of friends that do real estate in Canada. As you go from, let's say, the West Coast, from let's call it Vancouver, then to maybe Calgary, and you just keep moving around. Each city, each province is different. It's the same in the U.S. So, typically the coasts are a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Yes, so you can get deals. The key to real estate, from my opinion, is trying to be ahead of where we're going. So, Vancouver blew up way back in the 80s because of your immigration, when you could put $1 million down and all of a sudden you could open a business and you could be a citizen in Canada. Well, that's I don't know if they're still doing that, but that kind of blew up that market. And so each market's a little bit different depending on oil and gas. If you go up to the tar sands, up above Calgary, and I know that busted since, and so it's the same in the U.S. We have boom and bust towns based on what's happening in that particular area.
And towards the end of that clip that I just played, Robert was talking about being able to put money into real estate but pay zero taxes on, was it the income? Is it the capital gains on the property? Like, can you get into some specifics with that? And if Tom, you need to chime in on the tax planning stuff, let us know what that looks like too.
If Tom, if I could step in, I'll just show you this diagram, then Tom takes over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly.
I'll give you the full screen just so you can show the diagram.
Yeah, this is the most important part. When somebody says they're investing, are you investing from an employee or self-employed or business and insider? And these guys pay the highest taxes. So when somebody says I'm making money, I want to know from which quadrant they're investing from. So I won't touch a deal if I'm investing from here. Again, this is poor dad, this is rich dad, this is academics, these are capitalists here. But what Tom has taught me, and my rich dad taught me to do, is if I have a business, which I do, and I make $1 million here, 1 million. So the rich dad company makes 1 million. Immediately, I've got to ask Kenny, I need a $5 million liability. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make $1 million here, and I have to find a $5 million either rental property, oil and gas, or something. So they're not the same transaction. So every time I'm investing, I'm on two tracks. One as a business owner, and the other as an investor.
Got it.
Every year I'm calling Kenny, saying, hey, Kenny, I need some more. I need some more debt. I need some more debt. Tom, take over.
So is that through a holdco? Like here in Canada, we call that a holding company, abbreviated down to holdco, which is just a number company, which holds your assets. Is that what that looks like, Tom?
Yeah, typically, but it's not the company that makes the difference. It's the asset. So it's having the debt combined. So you get a deduction. In Canada, it's the same. Okay, you get a deduction for a portion of the purchase price of the property, right? And some of that is accelerated depending on what type it is. So is it, for example, is it carpeting and window coverings, or is it land improvements like landscaping, or is it the building itself, right? Everything wears out at different rates, and the government gives you a deduction. We call it depreciation down here, or asset recovery in some countries, and that deduction is it's not like the property's going down in value. It's just that the government gives you a deduction for wear and tear on the building and on the property. And when you get debt along with the money you put in, then what happens is you actually magnify that deduction. So Robert can actually take $1 million, buy $5 million of property, and he could end up with, right now in the US, as much as $1 million deduction. But whether it's $1 million or 500,000, Canada's probably closer to 500,000 right now if you did that. But you can really, what's really interesting. You can really do it in any country.
So it's structured in such a way that a holding company holds that $1 million asset. So let's say that you generate $1 million in income on it, and you're sitting on that cash. As long as you take on the $5 million in debt in the, let's say you buy an apartment building with a bunch of doors, then that's a wash, and there's no taxes paid.
Exactly.
Got it.
Rich, exactly. What I'm trying to do is I have a business as an asset, Rich Dad, let's say. Mm-hmm. I start panicking around July, and I'm on the phone to Kenny. I said, Kenny, what you got? This is the difference that people have a hard time realizing. I'm looking for more debt.
And when you say more debt, you generally mean like borrowing money from a bank for real estate investment.
I need to find something I can borrow money on. And the reason I say that is so many people, Americans, Canadians, they've been taught to get out of debt, live debt free. So the opposite. So when I tell people, when I'm calling Kenny panicking, I say, Kenny, how much debt have you got? And what he's got in assets, so let's use the same numbers, 1 million, 5 million. I now have a $6 million asset, and it might be an apartment house in Austin, Texas. That was the last deal we did, right, Kenny? That was Austin.
Yeah, it was 450 doors, 455 doors, 90 million.
And is there like a certain region that you guys lean to right now? Like I know there's somewhat of a migration of citizens from certain states to places like Texas, Arizona, and Florida. Have you been targeting like these growth areas specifically?
Yeah, so we have I have about 300 employees at this point. We have just about 10,000 doors, and our acquisition guys are constantly looking for obviously where people are heading. So, back in the day, you can kind of pick on, let's say, Detroit. That was really hot and vibrant. Now it's, there's not a lot of people going there. And so now that's happening along the coast. So Washington, Oregon, California, not exclusively, but a lot of people are moving out of those areas into other areas based on all kinds of things. So yes. And so one of those markets that we're looking at is Texas. They're obviously not moving everywhere in Texas, but there are certain markets that people are going to. And there's a bunch of cool ways, Rich, like simple. Like if you think about it, it makes complete common sense, but like Ryder truck and U-Haul truck rentals one way.
I was watching a video on your channel. Yeah. So how do you get that data?
Yeah, it's all on the internet. North American Van Lines. Also out-of-state driver's licenses, as an example, or residency or whatever. When you, like, let's say people are moving here from Washington to Arizona, let's say, which is where I live. So they turn in their driver's license. Well, that's a data point. So, last year, Arizona grew by 98,000 people. North Carolina, 93. Texas, 321,000. And Florida, 211,000. Those are the top 4 states right now that are
do you actually know what the percentage growth is versus?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay.
And that is important, but what happens, Rich, as you can imagine, when let's say 100,000 people come to Arizona, mm-hmm. If we don't have the supply to accommodate that, then it drives prices up, drives rent up. It's hard to get a reservation. All that stuff's happening mm-hmm. here in Arizona. It's happening in Florida. It's happening in Texas. Those states are busy.
And the truck rental companies, do they publish that information about where all their vehicles are moving to, or is that like an insider thing? Or
you can go right on U-Haul and go on North American and go on Ryder, and it's actually they'll show you.
Oh, really?
It's pretty neat. Yeah, just it's
clever
available on the internet right now, and so yeah, those are just some of the things. You wouldn't want to rely on them completely, But there's also some crazy horror stories. So I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend that's trying to move from California, and U-Haul is going to charge him 10 grand and because it's a one-way trip, and it's up to Idaho. And so he said, if I get it back to them, it's only 4. So there's what's happening is all their trucks are leaving, and they don't have the labor to get them all back.
So there's got to be a market to pay somebody like $1,000
Oh,
to drive that thing back.
I'll do it for $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably put an ad in a local listing and get some kid to do it with a driver's license, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.